Hi, my name's Paul and welcome to part 2 of my video series where we go through my Fullstack Javascript app, React.js on the front end and node.js on the back end. Today we'll be looking at the folder directory structure and the general flow of the server side of the application. So let's take a look now. So here we have the server directory, and you can, just from the last video, you can see here's the full app. We've got the client, node modules, server, and package.json. So just to recap, basically the way this application works is there are two applications in one here. There is a server application and a client application. The server application in Node.js creates the web server and creates all of the API endpoints that allow the client application to communicate with the MongoDB database. And it does that using the Express framework. So all of the code for the Node.js server is located in the server directory here. And if I wanted to, I could actually host the server and the client in two completely different locations, because the only way they are connected is via the APIs. So let's have a look at the folder then. So we can see here the server directory, and within that directory we have a folder called config, and this is where the connection strings to the database are set up. So yeah, and later on I'll show you we're using Mongoose for the models schemas, and this is where they're set up. Okay, so and then we've got middleware, which is middleware and services are probably due for a refactor, probably going to put everything into middleware, but really that's the code that gets run when the API endpoints are hit, and sometimes you might have a bit of code that runs before the data is actually pulled in. Then I've got models, and these are the data structures, the definitions, the schemas for the data which is being used in Mongo. So this is using a framework called Mongoose. I think it's a framework plugin called Mongoose, and that allows you to define the schemas. So here is an example of the schema for a document in the application. So it's basically just a JSON object, object if you like. So fairly straightforward. You just have to give it some properties, and then you can define the types, etc., etc. So there's the models. Then I've got a directory here called Node Client, and I found when I was creating the app that part of the application requires you to copy some code which allows you to then put an embeddable object on a blog post, right? And that uses an iframe. And I found when I originally created this using React, because that's what I'm doing all the front end in, but when I did that, I found that once I put it on the server and I was trying to access it using Chrome, that Chrome didn't really like that, and it blocked the content. So I tested various things and found that if I ran it in on the server, that was not a problem. So I may be able to get it to work in React, but to be honest, the functionality in the embed is not that interactive. So having a server-based rendering of the application isn't really too much problem. So I've done it that way, and that's why we have a Node Client folder. So that only renders one page, which is the page which is seen through the iframe when you look at the object, if it's embedded on a blog post or what have you. So that uses EJS. EJS is a templating language that you can use with Node. It's quite simple. You create these things called partials. So it's kind of similar to React, where your partials are a component, if you like, and you can call those partials. So a quick tour of my EJS. So what we've got here is a the entry point to this part of the application. And you can see here that we have a div. Within the div is this code here, and this is bringing in three partials. You've got the header, you've got the document, and you've got the footer. And then if I was to just give you an example of the header, you've got another bit of HTML code, and then you've got within here there is a variable, and there's syntax here to determine that that's a variable, and you can import the data at the top here as well. So it's fairly simple, and that allows you to render out a page without a big you know, it's quite neat. It's quite neat. I suppose that's the purpose of the templating. And then I've got the routes directory. This is where the API endpoints are set up, and so basically each file within the routes directory, I've got an auth confirmation document users, and each file allows you to set up the endpoint and set up how it behaves under different HTTP requests. So a API endpoint, you can give it different HTTP requests, and if depending on how much experience you are with APIs, this will probably be very, very familiar to you. But you can use something like Postman to put in different HTTP requests to your API, and so we've got you get, put. Here we have an example. Which one's this? This is the so we've got different endpoints and different HTTP requests, and then I've got different functions which do different things depending on what you're doing. So basically what these routes allow my app to do is they allow it to pull in data from the database, pull in data for specific users, pull in specific documents, pull in user information, and edit all of that stuff. Different endpoints do different things on different sets of data, and generally an endpoint is accessing a different data set in MongoDB. I was going to call it a table, but it's not really a table. I think they call it collections in MongoDB. So that's the routes, and then we've got the services, which I explained before is really middleware. So, for example, I've got one endpoint that gets hit when you have forgotten your password, and what that does is then that links to initiates a function which then goes to SendGrid and uses the service SendGrid to send an email with your token, with your link, so that you can reset your password. And there's a few other things to do with authentication that the middleware folders do. So there we can see that's the server in a nutshell. In part 2 of this tour through my Fullstack JavaScript app. Go to the next video to see the tour through the client directory and the React app that's contained within it. See you then. Bye.